the quiet outskirts of Louisville, Kentucky, just past the dim glow of streetlights and the distant hum of traffic, lies an old railroad bridge stretching over Pope Lick Creek. If you listen closely on certain nights, you might hear something other than rhythmic clatter of still against still. A whisper, a voice calling your name. And if you follow it, you may never return. Some say it's a ghost, others a demon. But the locals, they know better. They know about him. They call it the Pope Lick monster, a twisted, nightmarish thing. For decades, people have whispered about a creature, half man, half goat, and part sheep that stalks the trestle, preying on the curious and the reckless. Some say its eyes glow red in the darkness. Others claim its horns twist up like ancient gnarled roots. But one thing remains the same in every story. This monster is not just seen, it is felt. They say it has a voice, an unnatural voice, one that can warm its way into your mind and make you do things that you've never even dreamed of. A voice that lures people onto the tracks and straight into the path of an oncoming train. And yet, despite the warnings, the Pope Lick Trestle remains a magnet for those who dare to test the legend. Some come seeking a thrill, others proof. But not all of them leave. Where did the Pope Lick monster come from? There are a few theories, but none of them are comforting. Some believe it was a circus freak, a grotesque hybrid of man and beast, abused by its handlers and locked in a cage for the amusement of others. But one day, during a terrible storm, a train carrying the circus derailed on the very trestle where the monster now roams. Its cage burst open, the creature escaped. And from that moment on, the Pope Lick monster vowed revenge against the world that had caged it. Others claim something even worse, that a twisted farmer once lived near Pope Lick Creek, a man obsessed with dark rituals, a man who made a deal with something ancient, something evil. They say he sacrificed his goats one by one in exchange for unholy power, but the price was steep. His flesh twisted, his bones cracked, until he became that very monster that he worshipped. And then, of course, there are those who say the Pope Lick monster was never human to begin with, that it has always been there. For decades, people have reported strange encounters near the Pope Lick Trestle, and there's one thing that everyone agrees on. Do not go to Pope Lick Trestle alone. Some say if you stand beneath the bridge and listen carefully, you'll hear the distant sound of hooves pacing above you. Others swear that they've seen a shadow flickering in the trees just out of reach. But the most chilling reports, those come from the ones who claim they heard something calling to them by their name. The Pope Lick monster may be a legend. It may be a ghost story. Or it might just be something else entirely. Whatever it is, whatever lurks beneath that old rusted bridge, it doesn't just wait. It wants you to come to it. If you've ever driven through the back roads of Louisville, Kentucky, chances are you've heard the stories about the Pope Lick monster. Some say it's a goat-like creature, half man, half beast, that lures people onto the train tracks. And others claim it's an old urban legend meant to scare kids away from dangerous places. I used to think the Pope Lick Monster was just that, an old, dumb, urban legend. I mean, a goat man lurking around on a train bridge, luring people to their deaths. Okay. It was the kind of thing teenagers used to scare each other, a way to make an old, dangerous railway sound like something out of a horror movie. But after what happened to me and my friends that night, I wish I had never gone up there. I know something is up there, and it took my friend. It was the summer of 2016. My buddies Jordan, Will, and I were on a weekend trip to Louisville when we heard about the legend at some bar downtown. Some local guy, drunk off his ass, leaned in close and said, "You hear the voice. You're already dead." I laughed. My friends laughed. We all laughed. A few more drinks in, Jordan dared us to go check it out. I should have said no. We all should have. But I was cocky. I didn't believe in monsters. By 1:37 a.m., we were standing at the base of the Pope Lick Trestle. The bridge loomed over us, an old iron skeleton, stretching across the ravine. The air was so still. No wind, no rustling trees. Just the eerie silence that makes your stomach knot up, even when your brain tells you nothing's wrong. We climbed, and at the top, I looked out at the empty countryside. The lights of Louisville, Kentucky flickered in the distance. Everything was so quiet. And then, Alex. It was a whisper, soft, too close to my ear. I turned fast. "Did you hear that?" Jordan frowned. "Hear what?" I swallowed. I must have just imagined it. But then I smelled it. Rot. Thick, sour, decay. Like something had been laying there, dead, for weeks. Will gagged. "What the hell is that?" That's when I saw it. The eyes in the dark. It was squatting near the edge of the bridge. At first, just a shape in the dark. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw it. The legs were bent the wrong way. Thick, goat-like hooves. Long, too long, arms twitching at its sides. And its eyes? Reflective, intelligent, but not human. I couldn't move. It tilted its head at me, and then it smiled. Not like a person. Too wide, too many teeth. Then I heard it inside my head. Chomp. I didn't hear it with my ears. I felt it. The whisper crawled down my spine like ice. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. The bridge rumbled beneath me. A train. The train that shouldn't have been there. Jordan grabbed my arm. "Run!" Will was already sprinting for the ladder, but I couldn't move because the thing was still walking toward me. Not fast, not threatening. Just waiting. The whisper came again inside my head. Chomp. I felt my foot lift, my own foot, like something was pulling me forward. The train's horn blared. Jordan tackled me just as the still beast roared past. I hit the ground hard, my head cracked against the metal, my vision blurred. The last thing that I saw before I blacked out, the creature wasn't afraid of the train. It just watched, smiling. I woke up at the base of the trestle, my heart pounding, my ears ringing. Jordan was beside me, shaking. Dude, what the hell was that? Will was gone. We searched for hours, called the police. No body, no trace, nothing. Official report, an accidental fall. But I know the truth. Because sometimes, late at night when I'm alone, I still hear it. That whisper, that voice. Jump. And I wonder, if I had stayed a second longer, would it have let me go? Or would I be like Will? Just gone.
I've never believed in the supernatural. People have stories of the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot. I was skeptical from the start. Was a skeptic. That is until one night in March of last year when it all changed for me. This is my story. I wasn't chasing ghosts, wasn't looking for trouble, just a quiet place to clear my head after a stressful day. I found myself driving down an empty back road on the outskirts of Louisville, Kentucky, the dark silhouette of the Poplick Trestle looming in the distance. Something about the quiet hum of the tires against the road, the rhythmic passing of the trees, was almost soothing. Until I got there. Until I made the mistake of stepping out onto that trestle. I didn't plan to stay there very long, so I parked on the roadside. I cut the engine and stepped into the night. The darkness here was different. Not just an absence of light, but a heavy pressing blackness that swallowed everything beyond my flashlight's reach. The trestle towered above, a skeletal beast of rusted iron, cutting into the night, like the bones and the remains of something ancient and dead. But this was still alive. I took a deep breath and started walking up the trail leading onto the bridge. The silence was thick, except for the crunch of gravel beneath my boots. I had heard stories as a kid of this location being the birthplace of something called the Poplick Monster. Supposedly, this creature lures people here to stalk and catch its next meal. I didn't buy any of that. Aside from being incredibly rusted and somehow still standing, the place offered me solace. I was standing near inches from the bridge when I heard something, a sound that made my blood run cold. A child's cry, faint, weak, echoing from somewhere beneath the trestle. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, to get in my car, to leave, but something kept me rooted to that spot. If there was a child down there, I couldn't just walk away. As someone with a kid myself, that would be a guilt too strong for me to swallow if this truly was a kid in danger. So I gathered my strength and suppressed my fear. I turned off the path and hurried down toward the underside of the bridge. I began my hike down to where I heard the kid last. By now it had stopped, but it was cyclic, meaning every few minutes or so I'd hear it again. This was to be expected, though. A child perhaps had fallen down and hurt himself really badly. Something about that cry, when I heard it, gave me a sinking feeling in my chest. Upon finally making it to the bottom of the trestle, I was greeted by more darkness as the trees blocked even the moonlight. I expected to see him, but nothing. No child, no footprints, just a dirt trail winding into the dense trees. The air was still, too still. The wind was starting to die down, and that's when I noticed something. On the trail, I heard nothing but crickets, but all of them had stopped. As a hunter, I immediately recognized this as a bad sign. that something of a predatory nature, whether it be man or beast, was in the area. And then, a branch snapped. My breath caught in my throat. Something shifted in the darkness. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl rumbled through the air, deep and ominous. Not a dog, not a bear, something bigger. My body reacted before my brain could. I spun on my heel and ran. Whatever that was, I was on its turf, and I got the message. I ran as fast as I could. My legs burned as I sprinted up the trail. My car was just ahead, just a few more. I tripped. A stray branch caught my foot, sending me sprawling, face first, into the dirt. Pain exploded through my ribs. Every breath was labored. I knocked the wind out of myself. As I turned around to look at the trail behind me, I saw something. There, standing at the edge of the tree line where I just was, were eyes. 2 glowing, burning red eyes, watching me. Then another pair blinked into existence beside them. Then another, and another. 4 sets of eyes, 8 glowing embers in the dark. And they were getting closer. One stepped into the moonlight. I could finally see it clearly now. A disturbing goat's head perched on a hulking frame. This creature's stature was robust and hunched over. I estimated it to be about 6 to maybe 7 feet tall, just standing there, looking down at me. My heart began pounding out of my chest. This creature's stare was giving me a horrible headache. I got the energy to push myself up off my ass, and I did the only thing I could: run. I bolted for my car, barely managing to throw myself inside and slam the door shut. Hands shaking, I jammed the keys into the ignition and gunned it. As I tore down the road, never once looking back. But it didn't end there. That night was only the beginning. The nightmares started immediately. Visions of those burning eyes watching me, but from the corners of my room, constantly feeling like I was being watched. It took a month of burning sage and reciting prayers, anything I could think of, before whatever followed me finally left. If it left. I'm telling this story because I need someone to believe me. The Poplik monster may not be a physical entity, but a psychological one. Still undeniably real, but only if you feed it one thing: fear. Something about the trestle calls you back, and whatever I experienced that night certainly felt real to me. Safe to say, I know what I saw, and I'll be damned if I come back to that place, only to have it remember me.